I thought that let us have some discussion on economics, so that you understand some fundamentals. That's all. So we'll not be going in detailed economics thing, macroeconomics analysis or microeconomics analysis. We'll be just talking about certain concepts. Okay, right. So let's start with the first thing. Uh, these are the three entities. So when I'm talking about economy, so uh, my what I'm indicating is the modern economic system. Okay, the modern economic structure. Fundamentally, I mean, many of us look at the economy from different perspectives. Sometimes we say that it is so there is a division or categorization like capitalist economy, socialist economy, like that. But if you look at the economic structure of modern economy, whether it is socialist or socialism based economy or capitalist based economy, the basic structure is same. So let us understand that basic structure. So you have basically three entities when you look at the economic structure. So we have people, that is humans. Then we have social institutions and commodities. So commodities, as I mentioned in the last class also, so the output of the economy, that is the goods and services. And what are the social institutions? Social institutions are basically the production firms or the market, right? And household. So people form household, people form production firms, and people form the market. Okay. So basically three entities: people leading to social institutions, and of course social institutions are formed with a combination of people and commodities, that is goods and services, right? So three entities: people, social institutions, and commodities. They are interrelated like this. So you have household. So household is an institution which is the consumer for goods which are produced by the firms. Okay, and let me just look at the pointer if I can get the pointer. Yeah. So can you see the pointer, laser pointer? Anyone can reply. Can you see the pointer?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So household. So uh, households are consumer of goods which are being produced in the firms. Okay. But at the same time, they are the owner of the resources. So I mentioned about the three factors of production: land, labor, and capital. So all these resources are actually owned by household, the people. The natural resources, land, that means the land, labor, and the capital. All three resources are owned by the household. So, for example, your saving, your deposits in bank or any other institution is nothing but capital. Okay, so but you are the owner of that capital, right? So this the household. So, and there are two different type of markets. One is factor market, another is the product market. Okay, let us see this interaction. So households interact with the factor market with the resources. They are the owners of the resources, so they go to the market and ready to sell land, labor, and capital. Okay, so they own these resources and they go to the market and say that if anyone requires these resources, we are ready to offer. opposite to household, there are firms which are producing goods and services. So they consume the resources which are given to them or offered to them by the household. So they are the consumer of the resources. It's calling you. Yes, Prerna. But there is a link. No? Rahul is also owner. Rahul is also owner. Let me just see. मैं देखता हूँ. Let me just check. If I've got the request. Okay. So some students are not able to join. So I think my TA will resolve the issue. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that you are able to see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So right. So they employ the resources, convert these resources into goods or services. Okay. And they interact with the factor market because they are the buyers of these resources. Okay. So they obtain these resources from households. And now you understand what is the factor market. Factor market is where the firms and individual households, they interact. Market does not mean that it is a physical place. So for example, when a company hires a human resource, so human resource represent the household, firms, company is a firm, right? And this interaction is taking place in the labor market. A labor market can be a physical place where you go and just bargain with the person and bring him to home or the firm for contractual work, or it can be a structured, way of hiring through which companies or firms hire skilled persons, right? so, so this market means it's a kind of structure, it's a kind of process through which households and firms, they interact for exchanging the resources, right? Now there is another market that is called product market, and the product market is where firms and households are interacting for the exchange of goods. Okay. So exchange of goods, again, the firms have produced the goods and households, they are in need of goods. Now what goods and services, what purpose it is solving for the, why households are consuming goods or services? They have their needs, and needs are basically utility based. So for example, a consumer is purchasing food. What is the utility? He needs to, she or he needs to satisfy the hunger. Okay, for the survival it is must, but then he has to buy the food from the market, right? But this need can go to a next level, that can become the want or desire, but again that also gives certain kind of utility. Okay, food on one hand, this is a necessity to uh, survive, right? So the utility in that case is survival, but it goes beyond, utility goes beyond that. Now, for example, if you buy, when you have choices in food, so instead of eating chapati, you are going for burger, you are going for pizza, you are going for some, high value food product, then you are satisfying something more than hunger. Okay, but this satisfaction is called utility. Okay, so consumers, they purchase or they consume goods and services because these goods and services are providing certain utility, some satisfaction to these consumers, right? And this exchange of goods and services takes place in the product market. Okay? When we are talking about economy and when we talk about the resource, there is a clear-cut indication that resource for an economist or for any economic activity, resource is strictly anthropocentric. What does it mean? If any resource is not desired by the firm, let's say any kind of tree which is not giving any product or which is not giving any output, which is consumed by any household through the social institution, that is the market, or it is not providing any utility to an individual, any satisfaction to an individual in form of, let's say, any fruit or any timber or any medicinal value. So that means that this tree is not giving any output which can be taken up by the household as a resource, which can be taken up to the factor market, which can be bought by a firm and converted into a value added product, that is a good. In that case, this tree will not be considered as a resource by an economist. Okay, so from an economic notion, resource is strictly anthropocentric. Okay, fine. Let us talk some more terms. Utility I have already talked about, but there is a concept of marginal utility, and related to that, there are two different laws: law of diminishing utility and law of diminishing productivity. What does it mean? It means that, so what the term marginal means? Marginal means 1 unit extra. Let's say you have already consumed, so you have bought, let's say, 10 kg vegetable from the market. Okay, and it cost to you, let's say, 100 rupees. Now you are buying 11 kg of the vegetable. That means more beyond 10 kg, you are going to buy another kg of vegetable, and for that you pay 9 rupees. So if you talk about the average price, you bought 10 kg vegetable in 100 rupees. That is the, so average price is 10 rupees a kg. But this 11th, that is the extra 1 kg beyond 10 kg, you have purchased for 9 rupees. So this is marginal consumption. So if this 11th unit is the marginal consumption, and the 9 rupee is the marginal price. Similarly, if you consume or if you buy another 1 kg, okay, so then this 12th kg will become, so this marginal consumption will always be 1 unit, okay, and again you have to pay certain price for that. It may be 9 rupees, it may be 10 rupees, or it may be something else. So that price will be the marginal price. So this is the concept of marginal. So 1 unit extra, or the next, or the subsequent consumption, subsequent production. So law of diminishing utility and productivity says, so there are two different laws. We'll talk about demand and supply curve in detail. So diminishing utility says that when you consume 1 extra unit, your utility is reduces. I mentioned that we consume any good or service to gain the utility, because we are enjoying the utility of that good. So what this law of diminishing utility suggests? So you have consumed already X amount of good or service. If you further consume X plus 1 unit, so this 1 unit extra which you are consuming after consuming X unit, your utility will be lesser. Let's understand this with an example. So if you have consumed 1 mango, the pleasure of consuming 1 mango, and then you decide to consume the second mango. So the pleasure of consuming second mango will be slightly lesser than the first mango. And third mango again, and there will be a point then you will stop enjoying the mango. Okay, so you will not be consuming. So after, let's say, consuming 6 mangoes, you will say, no, I don't. So there is no utility. So that does not mean that your love to mango has, the only thing is that you have already consumed certain amount of mango. So the further consumption is not giving you any pleasure. You still love mangoes, right? The same is true with the productivity also. So let's say if a labor is working for 8 hours, if you ask him to work for 9th hour, her or his productivity will not be the same. So let's say he has produced, let's say, 100 units in 8 hours, let's say 80 units in 8 hours. That means average per hour productivity is 10 units. So if you ask him, her or him to work for another 1 hour, his productivity will not be 10 units. He'll be able to produce just say 7 units, 8 units, or like that. So law of diminishing utility and productivity suggests that if you keep on consuming or utilizing resources, then utility or productivity or return starts declining. Okay, and this does not happen. So for example, the example of mango. So maybe it does not happen, say, immediately after the first mango. So it may happen like this, that for first 3 mango, utility or the pleasure is increasing, and then it starts decreasing. So the decrease in the utility starts from the 4th mango. Similarly, productivity. So when a worker starts working, first hour he produces, let's say, 7 unit, then 8 unit, then 9, then 10. It reaches to the peak. So 4th hour, 5th hour, he produces on the similar productivity, let's say the 10 units, and then it starts decreasing. Okay, so the utility and productivity, or utility and return, it reaches to a certain peak and then it starts declining. Okay, similarly, there is another term which we will be using very regularly, that is the resource scarcity. What does it mean? See, In last class also, we talked about the biophysical limit of Earth, although the context was slightly different. But here also, in economics also, we look at the limit of the resources. So let's say land, a very simple example. Even if we assume that the total land available on Earth is arable, then also we know the limit, there is a limit, the land. Physically, the quantity is known to us. We cannot go beyond that. Further, if we categorize the land, we'll find that there is a certain limit, certain fraction of the land which is available on the earth, which is arable. That is, agriculture is possible on that land. Similarly, many other resources we can see, minerals, right? Labor, capital. You know, 2 days ago we had a budget. They allocated certain resources to certain ministries. Now, can they double the allocation to all ministries? No, they cannot. Why? Because there is a limited funds available. Whatever is the tax collection, whatever is the revenue available with the government can allocate budget according to that. And then, of course, they take some amount of loan also. But that is also limited. Similarly, labor is also limited. So all resources, land, labor, capital, they are limited. But then how this limited resources lead to the resource scarcity? Let's assume that in a very small ecosystem, economic ecosystem, we have limited amount of labor who can work, or limited amount of engineers. Let's say we have 100 civil engineers with us, and there are 20 projects going on, civil engineering related projects going on, and each project in ideal situation requires 1.5 engineers, let's say, on an average. So the total requirement is for 150 engineers. But availability is only for 100 engineers. So there is a scarcity of resources, right? And why this term is important? Because the whole discussion around economic structure or the market economy we talk about is nothing but efficient allocation of the resources. What does it mean? Since resources are limited, we have to allocate these resources to different economic activities. And market structure, or the market, the perfect market is an institution which ensures that resources are allocated efficiently. So you can consider to be a problem of optimization. So perfect market system is a kind of algorithm. What we need to optimize? We need to optimize the resource allocation. What are the constraints? Constraints are the limited resources. So problem is defined. Objective function is optimum allocation of the resources. Constraints, what are the constraints? Constraints are limited resources. And then this problem is solved by a method or an algorithm which is known as perfect market structure. Uh, right. This I'll cover later. Okay. So what is this perfect market structure, and why it is? Why and who is and how we are claiming that this perfect market structure leads to? So this theorem is given by economist almost 200 years ago, and this economist maybe all of you know by name Adam Smith, and this theorem is known as invisible hand theorem. Okay. So what this theorem suggests? It suggests that if there exists a perfect market kind of thing, then in that market, I have already explained that market is it can be physical or virtual thing. And market does not mean that interaction between selected or few individuals, few households and few firms. I'm sorry. It is a broad term. All households, all possible firms, right? All possible firms producing all kind of goods and services. When they interact in the market, Adam Smith suggests that all these individuals, they are acting in the market or they are playing in the market for their own benefit. The consumer is interacting in the market for serving his own interest. The firm is interacting in the market to serve its own interest. What is the interest of a consumer? Maximum utility in minimum price. What is the firm which is playing in the market? What they want? Maximum profit. And how can they have maximum profit? If they have the minimum cost of production, right? So their benefit is minimum cost of production. Consumer's benefit is minimum market price. So this theorem suggests that, and if you look at the benefits of consumer as well as the producers, you find them that they are contradictory to each other. Firm wants minimum production cost, maximum profit, maximum selling cost. On the other hand, consumer wants lower selling cost or lower market price. So what happens that in long run, when they act against each other, equilibrium is reached, and that equilibrium is beneficial to both consumer as well as producer. It results into consumer surplus as well as the producer surplus. And that is why we reach to a situation where resources are allocated most efficiently. Because if producer surplus is also at the peak, consumer surplus is also at the peak, so the total surplus is at the highest level. So that means resources are allocated most efficiently. Okay, so this is what this theorem says. But when I say the market, I also add one term, perfect market. Okay, so there are certain conditions for the market to be known as the perfect market. What are these conditions? Number one, freedom of choice based on self-interest. All firms as well as individuals or the households, they have full freedom to choose. Just hold on, I have a message. Let me just resolve this issue first. Okay, the issue is, I think it's resolved. Maybe someone is having some other problem. Right. Okay, so the first condition is that everyone, including individuals, or that is household and firms, they have freedom of choice, and that freedom of choice is based on self-interest. So for the first condition for that is that these buyers and sellers both are having information. I mean, both of them are well informed. And of course, they exhibit rational behavior. Then only they can work in their self-interest. Okay? So, that is the first condition. Okay? Now, the additional condition to this, or the corollary to this condition is that market should be provided with an environment which is conducive to free expression of their choices. Like, for example, a commune system or the socialist system. Right? A socialist system cannot be termed as, even if the production system or the economic structure is same, but this cannot be called as perfect market structure because the environment is not conducive. Buyers and sellers are not free to express their choices. Okay? Next. Perfect information. Now, all economic agents, buyers, sellers, firms, all, they should be provided with the full information regarding the market transaction. let's say there are different firms, you know, looking for engineers, looking for professionals, skilled workers. So they should have information that what is the, at what price firms in sector A, or let's say infrastructure sector, what is the, at what price they are hiring the labor, or in telecom sector, what is the price at which they are hiring the labor. I mean, of course, it should be for the similar level of the skills, just for example. So they should have full information about the market. Third is perfect competition, and it can happen only if there are large number of buyers and large number of sellers. Okay. Fourth, which is very important, mobility of resources. Mobility of resources is required because of the factor that any economy is dynamic in nature. It means that there can be a change in economic condition due to, let's say, consumer preference, due to, let's say, technology change. Very good example. 20 years ago, what was the market for compact disc CDs? A lot of companies came in the market for to manufacture the CDs. Nobody predicted that within 4 to 5 years CDs will be out of the market. So just because of technology change, the dynamics of the economy got changed. Once upon a time, Nokia was a leader in the mobile market, but dynamics got changed. Consumer preference moved from simple phone to mobile phone. Earlier, their preference was for the mobile phone, mobility of communication. That was their preference. But it changed to, so mobility of communication, they got it. But now they need data storage, they need entertainment, they need everything. More than voice, they are looking for text and graphics. So their preference moved from a simple phone to smartphone. And all of a sudden, Nokia was the leader of the market. You don't see Nokia anywhere. So, economy is a dynamic thing. And if economy is a dynamic thing, then there should be a mobility of resources. There should not be any restriction on the mobility of the resources. So from one type of, so let's say I took the example of CD. Now the resources which were being used for producing CDs, they moved to some other sector, or maybe to produce the, these pen drives. So this is the fourth condition, very important. And the fifth condition is considered to be one of the most critical condition for getting a perfect market. That is the ownership right. Many times this ownership right is enough to check whether the market is perfect or not. Especially when we'll be talking about environmental resources. will use this the most critical condition. For ownership right, there are certain fundamental requirements. Number one, the resource under consideration should be able to get specified to quantification methods by some area demarcation, volume demarcation. I mean, there has to be some physical boundary in case of goods or resources. For example, let's say a piece of land. Area is defined. So this is the piece of land where it is located. So nature and characteristics of the resource under consideration are completely specified. Okay. Owner should have exclusive right to the resource, and this should be legally owned. Legally means, I mean, you claim that I own this resource, but if there is no legal support to this, it does not have any meaning. Third, rights should be transferable. Otherwise, so I own some resources. And legally also it belongs to me. But if I am not allowed to exchange these resources in the market, so from economy point of view, it has no meaning. Because I cannot bring, if these resources are not transferable, then I cannot bring these resources into the factor market. So it should be transferable. Ownership rights have to be transferable. Fourth, ownership rights has to be enforceable. Means there should be any institution which can protect the ownership right. And fifth, of course, legal clause I have already discussed, right? So these are certain conditions to define ownership rights. So if we have these 5 conditions, we can say that market is perfect. This is another thing which I just wanted to share with you. Now let us see the very popular demand and supply curve. Let us quickly understand this. I have already talked about the resource scarcity and market. Yeah, so I talked about the the Adam Smith theory of invisible hand. But there is another corollary of this Adam Smith theory. Adam Smith suggests that market handles the resource scarcity in the most efficient way. Number one. Number two, it also suggests that this resource scarcity is indicated by the price of any goods and services. What does it mean? It means that when you go to the market and if that good or service has got price in the market, so what we can say as a microeconomist, that this resource is scarce in the market. That is why it has got positive price. Any good, any service which is freely available, it has only 2 meanings. Number one, it does not have any utility to human beings. Or, so example I have already discussed, any tree which does not produce anything which is useful to us. Right. And what is the second conclusion? So second conclusion, if there is no positive price, if any good or service is freely available, The second conclusion is that there is no scarcity. The very good example of this is the air. All of us need air, but do we pay for air? No, because it is freely available. There is no scarcity. You remember COVID days? We paid for oxygen because oxygen, which was required at that time, was a scarce resource. That time also air was free, right? But then patients were in need of oxygen, medical oxygen, right? So for them, and this was not freely available. There was scarcity for that, and we all know that it was not free. We all of us paid huge amount for that, right? So if price is there, that means there is a scarcity, or in terms of Adam Smith, the scarcity is indicated by its price. Higher is the price, higher is the scarcity. We'll discuss some few different type of scarcity and how price indicates that. Okay, we'll talk about that later on. But let us understand the market equilibrium price, how market works, what is the demand supply curve, and how we'll test whether when we say the equilibrium price, what Adam Smith is saying, whether really it is an optimal thing or optimal solution or not. Optimal solution, we can claim that any solution is optimal if we move left or right to that solution, then the new solution is not optimal. Then we say that, okay, so we'll test that. So right now what you can see here is the curve. On the x-axis we have quantity, on y-axis we have price. So basically it indicates marginal price. Now you understand the term marginal, right? So this D curve shows the demand. This is related to consumer, and this S curve is related to producer. This is called supply curve. Very quickly, let me, you can understand some more terms related to this. So this is PM. PM means the maximum price a consumer is willing to pay. So when we talk about this demand curve, it is nothing but consumers' willingness to pay for extra quantity. What does it mean? So let's say in reverse way you understand. So at price PM, consumer is, if the price goes beyond PM, if price increases with that, then what is the consumer willingness to consume this, to buy this good or service? Zero. He is not willing to buy. So if the price of that good or service goes beyond this PM, consumer is ready to forego the consumption of. You remember, scarcity is everywhere. Consumer also has got limited money available, and he has got different needs. He has to satisfy different needs in different proportion, so that his utility is maximum. Suppose he has got, let's say, 100 rupees, and there are, let's say, different demands, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, whatever. Something, some amount of money he'll be paying for housing, some for clothes, some for food, some are basic necessities in food, then electricity, school education for children, and all. Then entertainment, then this and that. So, given the constraints, the constraint is what? Constraint is the salary. Salary of the household. So given the constraints, you will allocate. Right? Suppose so lower middle income household is more fraction will be going to say food, house rent, health, and children's education. Very low fraction will be going to because to let's say entertainment, because they will be getting more utility in spending in comparison to entertainment to school education of their children. But higher income household, lower fraction in school education or very low fraction in food or let's say inferior good, but higher fraction on entertainment, on expeditions, on tours, vacations. Or eating at exotic places. So every household will try to optimize or maximize its utility given the constraints. That is the salary. Okay. So let's say any particular household, if price of a good goes beyond PM, then she or he may feel that the utility which is getting out of this resource is not equivalent to the rupees they are paying. So she or he will be ready to forgo the consumption of that good. So that is the maximum price he is ready to. Now, if the quantity of the same good and service increases in the market, then law of diminishing utility, he will be ready to pay less. Now look at this in a different way. So for the first unit of consumption, the consumer is ready to pay as high as PM. But for the next unit, he is not willing to pay PM, he will be paying less. Further, for next unit, further less. So both ways, you can understand this demand curve. So basically, it is nothing but behavior of a consumer with respect to the willingness. It's her or his willingness. Okay? Right. Similarly, there is a curve. The supply curve is for the firm, producer firm. See, when they start using the resources, initially, as I discussed earlier, law of diminishing return or productivity. So up to certain limit, they are getting the maximum output from land, labor and resource, and then they reach to a quantity, okay, that they will be producing this quantity, and that will be the lowest production cost. So this is that production level, and PL is that cost of production. So the firm, started producing, and then they decide that okay, let's produce 100 television, and that is where we get the minimum cost. Now, if they take a decision to produce another unit of television, since they have utilized all low-cost resources, natural resources, labor, capital. Now, to produce this extra television set, they will be utilizing inferior resources or the resources at at higher cost. I mean, the extra labor. You remember, I took the example of the labor. If labor works for 9th hour, productivity will go down. So, if the firm takes a decision to produce more than this, their cost of production will go up. Okay? So, this is called supply curve. The quantity of production increases, the cost of production also increases. Of course, this is the marginal price. Okay, I think I'll just stop here because right. So I'll continue this discussion in the next class in physical mode. Okay. So my suggestion to all of you is that just go through some of the basics of microeconomics. Any simple reading material, graduation level reading material, microeconomics, just go through. Just to understand what is, I mean, although I have explained it, right? But I think for our course, it is slight, I mean, if you have this understanding, then it will be, I mean, you will be able to sail through this course very easily. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
क्वेश्चन करवा देगा, आपको पढ़ा भी देगा, ठीक है, बढ़िया से पढ़ा देगा, ज़्यादा हाई लेवल पढ़ाएगा नहीं, डीप नहीं पढ़ाएगा, बस थोड़ा पढ़ा देगा, बेसिक याद करा देगा, फिर क्वेश्चन है, ठीक है, फिर और क्वेश्चन ये मैं सारे किए हुए हैं। फिफ्थ वाला में ये मल्टीपल चॉइस वाला, ठीक है, 9% के 3 एक्सरसाइज 3 में सब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चन दबा के इतना क्वेश्चन मजे क्या शेयर कर सकते हो क्या मैथ वाला क्वेश्चन? ये एडवांस सब्जेक्टिव मैंने करा नहीं था, कोविड के बाद करा था, जब मैं सारा सिलेबस कोविड मैंने तैयारी करी थी। वैसे कोविड का नाम मुझे पता नहीं था कोविड आएगा, तो मेरी तैयारी थी कोविड आया ना एडवांस, ये खत्म है ये, अगर आपने कर दिया तो शेयर कर सकते हो। ये वैसे क्वेश्चन नहीं है, यदि किसी को अपना दिमाग खराब करना तो ये कर लेना। फिजिक्स में भी ऐसे मैथ शेयर कर सकते हो, बहुत तगड़े नहीं है, मगर रफ्ती वर्क का भी वो नहीं है, हल्का सा रिग्रेट कुछ चीज़ मिसिंग करी है। हाँ, इनऑर्गेनिक छोड़ के चला गया, उसमें कोई रिग्रेट नहीं है, मुझे वैसे नहीं आती दिमाग में, याद करने में कमजोर था। मैथ में ये मैथ वाला जो फोल्डर है वो शेयर कर सकते हो पेन ड्राइव में। हाँ डाल दो। अभी क्या करोगे आप सॉल्व करके? अरे यार मुझे 2 चीज़ें बस अलजेब्रा प्रोग्रामिंग और कैलकुलेट करना, ये बेसिक है, ये इतना वो नहीं है। अरे जो पूरे बीच जो एक्टिविटी वो फिर मैथ हो तुमने ये से करी थी। क्लास खत्म क्यों नहीं, मैं आपको लगा दिया चलो मेरा हो गया, आपको भेज देता हूँ। अरे हाँ, ये इनको कट कर देगा, पीछे मत पड़ जाना। अरे ऐसे हो गया, ये कर देगा, बता रहा हूँ, मजबूर कर देगा इनको हट करना। एक और चीज